The desert is silent before dawn. Not peaceful, never peaceful, but waiting. Staff Sergeant Daniel Hayes lies half buried in the sand beside his tank, listening to the low hum of engines idling in the dark. The machine behind him is an M for Sherman steel. Rivets and all painted in dull desert tan, already coated in dust. It looks out of place here, like it belongs to another war, another time, but war doesn't care about time. Hayes checks his watch. 4:17. The attack begins in 13 minutes. Around him, the crew moves in quiet, rehearsed motions. Private Collins tightens the track tension, hands shaking just enough to notice. Corporal Reyes sits inside the turret, whispering something under his breath, maybe a prayer, maybe coordinates. Nobody asks. Fuel's steady. Collins mutters, not looking up. Hayes nods. He doesn't trust his voice yet. Across the horizon, faint silhouettes of other tanks stretch in formation, dozens of them. A steel line cutting through the desert, waiting to break forward. Above, the sky is pale gray, heavy with dust. No stars, no moon, just a ceiling of war. He remembers the briefing from hours earlier. Iranian armored divisions dug in across the ridge ahead. T-30 for variants, repurposed, reinforced. Old steel with new teeth. Mines buried beneath the sand. Anti-tank guns hidden in the dunes. A trap waiting to be sprung. 13 minutes, Hayes whispers, mostly to himself. Ray's voice crackles through the intercom. You ready for this, Sarge? Hayes climbs up onto the hull, brushing sand off his gloves. He looks east, where the ridge looms like a shadow. Somewhere out there, men are waiting too. Men just like them. No, Hayes says finally, but we're going anyway. A faint wind rises, carrying the smell of oil and metal. Then far off a flash. Artillery. A single boom rolls across the desert, low and distant. Then another, and another. The horizon erupts in fire. Mount up. Hayes snaps. The crew scrambles inside. Hatches slam shut, sealing them into steel and noise. The engine roars to life beneath them, vibrating through bone and muscle. Hayes drops into his seat, headset crackling alive. Command to all units, advance. The line of tanks begins to move, slow at first, then faster. The desert shakes as steel tracks bite into sand, pushing forward into smoke and flame. Visibility drops instantly, dust clouds rising, mixing with the haze of explosions ahead. Through the periscope, Hayes sees shapes emerging. Enemy positions, flashes of gunfire, and then, a sudden burst of light to their right. One of their tanks erupts into flames, turret blown clean off. Contact right. Ray shouts, the war has begun, and they've driven straight into it. The explosion hits like a hammer. Hayes feels it through the hull before he hears it, a violent shockwave that rattles the Sherman and sends dust, cascading through every seam. For a split second, the world inside the tank turns into pure noise. Keep moving, Hayes shouts, gripping the edge of his hatch. Through the periscope, visibility drops to almost nothing. Smoke and sand swirl together, turning the battlefield into a shifting wall of gray. Shapes flicker in and out, friendly tanks. Enemy fire, shadows that could be anything, or everything. Target, 2 o'clock. Reyes calls out. Hayes adjusts his view. They're half buried behind a dune silhouette. Low profile. Static. Anti-tank gun, Hayes mutters. Before he can finish, a flash bursts from the enemy position. The shell screams past them. Too close. Fire, Hayes orders. Inside the turret, Reyes reacts instantly. The Sherman's main gun thunders, recoil slamming through the tank like a punch to the chest. For a heartbeat, everything pauses. Then the dune erupts. Sand, metal, and bodies thrown into the air. Hit. Collins yells from below, voice tight with adrenaline. But there's no time to breathe. More flashes cut through the haze. Multiple positions. Hidden guns, just like the briefing warned. They're dug in deep, Reyes says, voice strained. We're driving straight into a kill zone. Hayes knows he's right. Ahead, the ridge looms closer now, jagged and alive with movement. Enemy armor begins to emerge through the smoke, dark shapes rolling forward. Tanks. Contacts front. Hayes snaps. The first enemy shell lands short, kicking up a wall of sand. The second doesn't miss. A Sherman to their left takes the hit directly in the hull. The explosion tears it open, flames pouring out as the tank grinds to a halt. The hatch bursts open, someone tries to climb out. Machine gun fire cuts them down instantly. Hayes clenches his jaw. No time, no hesitation. Reyes, target that lead tank. I've got him. The turret turns with a grinding whine. Through the sight, the enemy tank becomes clear, angular, reinforced, moving straight toward them. Range, 200 yards closing. Fire. The Sherman roars again. The shell strikes the enemy tank's turret. Sparks explode outward, but the vehicle doesn't stop. Damn it, no penetration. Reyes shouts. The enemy gun swings toward them. Hayes feels the moment stretch, every second dragging, heavy with inevitability. Reverse. Now, he orders. Collins slams the controls. The Sherman jerks backward just as the enemy fires. The shell slams into the ground where they were seconds ago, blasting sand and shrapnel across the hull. Too close. Collins breathes. Hayes wipes sweat from his eyes, though the air inside the tank is already suffocating. They can't outgun them. They can't outnumber them. And now they're pinned in the open desert, with nowhere to hide. Hayes says quietly, forcing calm into his voice. We hit them from the side. We move. The desert closes in around them. Hayes steadies his breathing, forcing his eyes to focus through the narrow slit of the periscope. The enemy tank is still coming, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Its silhouette grows larger through the smoke, like something rising out of a nightmare. Left flank now. Hayes orders. Collins doesn't hesitate. The Sherman lurches sideways, tracks grinding against sand and buried rock. The entire tank tilts for a moment, threatening to throw them off balance before stabilizing again. Inside, everything rattles. Hold her steady. Ray snaps. I'm trying. Collins fires back. Another flash, another enemy shot. The shell tears past their rear, missing by inches. Hayes doesn't flinch this time. There's no space left for fear. Only movement. Only survival. Gun ready. Ray's calls. Hayes watches the enemy tank through the shifting dust. Its turret is still searching, trying to reacquire them. For a brief moment, its side armor is exposed. That's it. That's the only chance they'll get. Now, Ray's. Take the shot. The Sherman halts just long enough. The gun fires. The recoil slams through the hull, deafening, violent. Hayes grips the edge of his seat as the shell cuts through the haze and hits. This time, the impact is different. A sharp burst of sparks, a metallic crack that echoes even through the chaos. The enemy tank jerks, its turret freezing mid-turn. Penetration. Ray shouts. A second later, flames burst from the hatch. The tank stops moving. For a brief, fragile second, there is silence. Then the battlefield roars back to life. More contacts. Collins yells. Hayes scans again. Shapes emerge through the dust to more enemy tanks cresting the ridge, spreading out, trying to encircle. They've seen what just happened, and now they're adjusting. They're learning fast, Ray's mutters. Hayes nods grimly. Then we move faster. Another explosion rocks the ground nearby. A friendly Sherman ahead takes a hit to the tracks, spinning uselessly as smoke pours from its engine. The crew inside pounds on the hatch, trying to get out. Machine gun fire sweeps across them before they can. Hayes looks away for a split second. Just a second. But it's enough to feel it. The weight of this. Orders. Collins asks, voice tighter now. Hayes doesn't answer immediately. He watches the ridge. Watches the enemy tanks spreading, coordinating, cutting off escape routes like predators closing in. They're not just reacting. They're controlling the fight. We don't hold here, Hayes finally says. We break through. Ray's pauses. Through them. Hayes nods, though no one can see it. Straight at the ridge. Full speed. We punch a hole before they close it. That's a gamble, Collins says. Hayes' voice hardens. Staying here isn't. A beat of silence. Then, understood. Collins slams the throttle forward. The Sherman surges ahead, engine screaming as it charges directly toward the ridge and the enemy waiting on. The silence inside the tank is worse than the explosions. For a second, nobody moves. Then everything happens at once. Engines dead. Collins shouts, frantically working the controls. Tracks are gone, we're not going anywhere. Hayes doesn't need confirmation. He can feel it. The Sherman sits crooked in the sand, one side sunk lower, crippled and exposed like a wounded animal. Outside, the battle doesn't slow. It tightens. Ray's status. Hayes demands. Guns still operational. Ray's replies, already rotating the turret. But we're a sitting target out here. Hayes exhales slowly. His mind runs through options, none of them good. Stay inside, fight until they're hit, or get out, and face the desert on foot. A shadow moves through the dust. Hayes freezes. Contact front, he snaps. Through the periscope, an enemy tank emerges, closer now. Too close. Its gun is already turning toward them, precise, deliberate. It knows they're disabled. It knows they can't escape. Load, Ray shouts. Loaded. The turret locks into position. The enemy tank fills the sight, massive, unstoppable. Fire. The Sherman's gun erupts again. The shell slams into the enemy's front armor and deflects. A shower of sparks. No penetration. Damn it. Ray slams his fist against the turret. We can't punch through from here. The enemy gun steadies. Hayes feels the seconds slipping away. Reload, he orders, but his voice is already fading behind a deeper realization. They won't get a second shot. Too slow, Collins says. Hayes makes the decision. Abandon the tank. Silence. Then, what? Ray snaps. You heard me. We stay here, we burn. Hayes shouts, grab your gear, move. The crew hesitates for half a heartbeat. Training fights instinct. Instinct loses. Hatches burst open. Heat and noise flood in an instantly gunfire. Wind, the roar of engines. Hayes pulls himself out first, boots hitting the sand hard. The desert feels unreal after the metal cage too wide, too exposed. Go, go, he yells. Collins climbs out, nearly slipping as he lands. Reyes follows, clutching his sidearm, eyes already scanning for cover. There is none, just sand and wreckage. Move to that ridge. Hayes points to a shallow rise barely 50 yards away. It's not much, but it's something. They start running. Behind them, the enemy tank fires. The shell hits the Sherman. The explosion is immediate and violent, tearing the tank apart in a burst of fire and black smoke. The blast wave slams into Hayes' back, throwing him forward into the sand. For a moment, he can't hear anything, just a high-pitched ringing. He pushes himself up, coughing, vision blurred. The wreck of their tank burns behind them, thick smoke rising into the sky. Collins is on his feet, dragging Reyes, who's limping now. Come on, Collins shouts. Hayes forces himself up and runs. Bullets kick up sand around them. Closer, closer. The ridge is right there. Almost. A burst of machine gun fire cuts across their path. Collins drops instantly. The ridge offers almost nothing. A shallow rise in the sand, barely high enough to break a silhouette. Hayes throws himself behind it anyway, dragging in a breath that tastes like dust and smoke. Reyes collapses beside him, clutching his leg, face pale beneath the grime. Behind them, the wreck of the Sherman burns like a signal fire. Too visible, too final. Reyes, how bad? Hayes asks, forcing his voice steady. Reyes pulls his hand away. Blood soaks through his pant leg, dark and spreading. Not great, he mutters, but I can still shoot. Hayes nods once. It's enough. Gunfire cracks overhead. Bullets chew into the sand ridge, spraying grit into their faces. Hayes presses lower, heart hammering as he peers over the edge. The enemy tank is advancing again. Slow, confident. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to. Behind it, more shapes move through the Hayes infantry now, spreading out, rifles raised, closing the gap step by step. They're sweeping us, Reyes says quietly. Hayes sees it too, a tightening arc. No escape to the left. No escape to the right. They're being herded. Ammo, Hayes asks. Reyes checks quickly. Sidearm, 2 mags. That's it. Hayes pulls his own pistol, checks the weight. Not enough. Not nearly enough. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The noise of the battlefield fades into something distant, almost unreal. Just wind, breath, and the slow approach of the enemy. They'll take us alive, Reyes says finally. Hayes doesn't answer. He knows what that means. Prisoners. Interrogation. If they're lucky. His grip tightens on the pistol. We're not done yet, Hayes says. Reyes gives a faint, humorless smile. Didn't think we were. A shadow passes overhead. Both men freeze. The sound comes a second later, a low, fast roar cutting through the chaos. Aircraft. Hayes looks up. Out of the dust-choked sky, dark shapes streak overhead low, fast, aggressive. Their engines scream as they dive toward the battlefield. Friendly. They have to be. The first explosion hits behind the enemy line, a massive burst of fire that sends sand and bodies into the air. The advancing infantry scatters instantly, formation breaking. The enemy tank halts, turrets shifting upward in confusion. Another pass. More explosions. The desert erupts. Hayes doesn't hesitate. Now, he shouts, grabbing Reyes. We move while they're distracted. Reyes grits his teeth and pushes himself up. Together, they stumble over the ridge, using the chaos as cover. Smoke thickens. Visibility drops to almost nothing. Perfect. They move fast, half running, half falling through the sand, weaving between burning wrecks and shattered metal. The battlefield has turned into a maze of fire and debris, but it won't last. Where are we going? Reyes asks, breath ragged. Hayes scans through the smoke. They're a cluster of destroyed vehicles, twisted and blackened. Cover. Those wrecks, Hayes points. We hole up there. They push forward, every step heavier than the last. The figures step through the smoke like ghosts. Hayes steadies his aim, pistol raised, finger tight on the trigger. His breathing slows, not calm, but controlled. Every instinct tells him the same thing. Shoot first. Survive. The shapes become clearer. 3 soldiers, rifles up, moving cautiously, scanning the wreckage. They haven't seen Hayes and Reyes yet. Not fully. On my mark, Hayes whispers. Reyes nods, jaw clenched against the pain. The enemy steps closer. Boots crunch softly over sand and twisted metal. One of them gestures toward the burning hull behind Hayes, talking. Distracted for just a second. That's enough. Now, 2 shots crack through the silence. Hayes fires first. The nearest soldier drops instantly, rifle slipping from his hands. Reyes fires a second later, his shot catching another in the chest. The man stumbles back, collapsing into the sand. The third reacts fast. Too fast. He dives behind cover, returning fire blindly. Bullets slam into the wreckage, metal ringing sharp and loud. Hayes ducks, pulling Reyes down with him. Damn it, Hayes mutters. They've lost the element of surprise. And now, everyone nearby will hear. Reloading, Reyes says, hands shaking as he swaps magazines. Hayes risks a glance. The last enemy soldier is repositioning, moving along the wreckage, trying to flank. Smart, too smart. He's circling, Hayes says. We hold here, he pins us. Reyes exhales slowly. Then we don't hold. Hayes meets his eyes. No more words needed. They move at the same time. Hayes rises just enough to draw fire. Bullets snap past him instantly, kicking up sparks from the metal. The enemy commits, leaning out, firing hard. That's when Reyes moves. Despite the pain, he pushes forward around the opposite side of the wreckage. Limping but fast enough, his pistol comes up. 1 shot. Clean. The firing stops. Silence crashed back in. For a moment, neither of them moves. Then Hayes lowers his weapon, breathing hard. Clear, he asks. Reyes nods, though his face is tight with pain. Clear, but Hayes knows better. Nothing is clear. Not here, not now. In the distance, the sound returns, engines, shouting, movement. The enemy is reorganizing after the airstrike. Faster than expected. They'll sweep this area, Hayes says. We can't stay. Reyes leans against the wreckage, pale. I'm slowing you down. No, Hayes cuts him off. You're not. It's not a debate. Hayes looks around quickly, scanning for anything useful. Weapons, ammo, anything they can take. He spots a rifle near one of the fallen soldiers. Moves to grab it. Checks it. Loaded. Better. Up, Hayes says, flinging the rifle and pulling Reyes to his feet. We keep moving east. Find our lines. Reyes nods, though every step clearly hurts now. They move again, slipping through the wreckage and into the open desert beyond. The smoke begins to thin, replaced by harsh sunlight breaking through the dust. Too bright, too exposed. Behind them, voices grow louder. Search teams. The engine roars louder with every second. Hayes drops to one knee, rifle raised, eyes locked on the approaching shape. Heat waves ripple across the desert, distorting its outline, but the speed is unmistakable. Fast. Too fast for a tank. Vehicle, Reyes says, breath tight. Light transport. Maybe. Or a scout, Hayes replies. Or something worse. The vehicle cuts through the dust, bouncing hard over an even ground. No hesitation. No attempt to hide its approach. Whoever is driving. They're confident. Hold fire, Hayes says quietly. Wait until we're sure. Reyes nods, though his grip tightens on his pistol. The distance closes rapidly. Details begin to sharpen. Open frame, mounted gun, to figures inside. Not tanks. Not infantry. Mobile. Dangerous. The gunner in the passenger seat swings the weapon slightly, scanning ahead. Not firing yet. Not aiming directly at them. They haven't confirmed targets. Yet. Hayes' finger rests on the trigger. Every second stretches thin. The vehicle is almost on them now. 50 yards. 40. 30. A sudden burst of radio chatter cuts through the air. Faint. Crackling. English. Hayes freezes. Did you hear that? Reyes whispers. Hayes nods slowly. The vehicle veers slightly, adjusting course, then slows. Not aggressive. Not charging. Friendly. Reyes asks. Hayes doesn't answer. Not yet. The vehicle pulls closer, engine growling low. The driver leans out slightly, trying to see through the dust. The mounted gun shifts, but not toward them. Past them, scanning behind. Then a voice shouts, U.S. Identify. Hayes exhales sharply. Friendly. He yells back, lowering his rifle slightly but not completely. To survivors. Tank crew. The vehicle brakes hard, skidding in the sand as it turns toward them. Up close now, faces visible beneath helmets and goggles. American. No mistaking it. Get in. The driver shouts. They're right behind you. Hayes doesn't hesitate this time. He grabs Reyes and pushes him toward the vehicle. Move. Reyes climbs in with effort, grimacing as he pulls himself over the side. Hayes follows, slamming his hand against the frame. Go. The engine revs instantly. The vehicle spins and accelerates, tearing back across the desert. Behind them, gunfire erupts. Enemy infantry crest the rise they just crossed, rifles flashing. Bullets chase after them, snapping through the air, kicking up sand in violent bursts. The gunner returns fire, controlled bursts cutting through the advancing line. They're on us, he shouts. Hayes looks back. Figures in the distance. More vehicles emerging through the haze. This isn't over. Not even close. Where are you taking us? Hayes asks, gripping the side as the vehicle bounces hard over the terrain. Forward commands pulling back, the driver replies. New line forming east of here. Reyes leans back, breathing hard, blood still seeping through his leg. Pulling back, he mutters, so we lost. No one answers. The engine begins to slow, not by choice, by necessity. Ahead, the desert shifts, no longer empty, no longer scattered chaos. The horizon hardens into a line, a formation, steel silhouettes stretching across the sand like a wall. Hayes narrows his eyes. Tanks, dozens of them, position hull down along a shallow ridge, guns already angled forward. No movement, no panic, just waiting. Tell me those are ours, Reyes says, voice low. No one answers immediately. The vehicle continues forward, speed dropping as tension rises. The mounted gunner stops firing, conserving ammo. Even the engine sounds quieter now, as if it understands the danger ahead. Through the dust, markings begin to appear on the tanks. Not American, not friendly. Hayes feels it settle in his chest. They pulled back, he says quietly, and we drove straight into their next line. The driver curses under his breath. We didn't know this wasn't on the last map. It is now, Hayes replies. The first enemy tank moves, just slightly, but enough. Its turret adjusts, locks on. Turn us around. The gunner shouts. Too late. The desert erupts again. The first shell lands short, blasting sand high into the air. The shockwave rocks the vehicle, nearly flipping it. The driver fights the wheel, trying to turn. A second shell hits closer. Too close. Hold on. The driver yells. The vehicle swerves hard, engine screaming as it pivots away from the advancing line of tanks. Behind them, more shells begin to fall, walking across the sand with terrifying precision. They've got our range. Reyes shouts. Hayes grips the side, forcing himself to think. Running won't be enough. Not like this. Smoke. Hayes yells. Do we have smoke? The gunner reacts instantly, pulling a canister and tossing it behind them. A thick cloud begins to spread, wide and heavy, cutting visibility. It buys them seconds. Maybe. The driver pushes the engine harder, the vehicle bouncing violently as it races back the way they came. Shells continue to fall. Closer, closer. One lands just behind them. The blast lifts the vehicle off the ground. For a moment, everything goes weightless. Then, impact. Metal screams. Sand explodes around them. Hayes is thrown sideways, his grip breaking as the world spins out of control. The vehicle rolls. Once, twice, then stops. Silence. Not complete, but close enough to feel it. Hayes lies half buried in sand, ears ringing, vision blurred. He tries to move, pain shoots through his shoulder, sharp and immediate. He forces himself up. The vehicle is on its side, twisted, smoking. Reyes? Hayes shouts. A groan answers him. Alive. The driver doesn't move. The gunner is gone. Hayes crawls toward the wreck, dragging himself through the sand. Every movement feels heavier now, slower. Like the desert itself is pulling him down. In the distance, engines, low, steady, closing in. Hayes reaches Reyes, pulling him free from the wreckage. His leg is worse now, blood soaking into the sand.